alright, let's do it.
Alright.
Hi everyone, welcome to Deadhouse. Today we are excited because it's officially December. So this is the December 15th video. It's important to state that because we have pre-recorded. So if we haven't answered any questions or things that you might have let us know or asked us in the comments, it's because we haven't had a chance to answer them on camera yet because it's pre-recorded.
Yes, when I was ready to come back, COVID hit, so we weren't able to record for a little while, and since that has calmed down World War II, we've started recording, but we weren't sure of our start date, but we've since nailed that down, and we're good to go.
And we're good to go. So now we've got a really good timeline for you guys, and anything that you send us, like information, like updates to things we've asked about or things you want to ask us, we will compile them and do a special little mini episode where we do questions from the ghost next door. So, you know, anything like that, feel free to send it to us and we will answer it. It's just, like I said, pre-recorded, so you might not see your response show up for a while.
But we'll get there.
We'll get there. We are starting today with Son of Slappy. This is exciting.
Yes. This is our last of the Slappy series, other than a bonus video that we're doing later.
Other than our bonus video, which we're going to announce at the end of this video, and it's the only Slappy book left. So anybody who knows anything about Goosebumps is going to know exactly what book it is, but we're going to confirm it at the end here. But we want to do it as like a bonus treat.
So don't tell people.
And this book was first published in January of 2013. So this is, again, one of the later, probably one of the latest published books we've looked at to date, outside of the new Slappy World series.
Probably so, yeah.
Yeah. And it starts in a whole new way. It starts with an introduction from R.L. Stine. He comes to you from his Goosebumps offices. And honestly, this was silly and didn't need to be there, but was so much fun. I actually found the offices kind of like really, really interesting. Like, you know, he's got these new offices now that has a bottomless pit, alligators, a laptop with the lap still attached, wanted posters of all the main villains across one wall, and we also get an interesting tidbit about Slappy, that he might be the most ghoulish villain in Goosebumps history, and that's a direct quote.
I'd believe that.
I would too. He's pretty terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just so much fun that I was kind of inspired to try to draw it. So I might actually try to draw out what the offices look like. I don't 100% know yet, but I might.
That'd be really fun.
Because there's like some new art programs I've been wanting to learn, and I might use those as an excuse to like...
A drawing prompt.
Yeah. If any of you want to draw the Goosebumps offices as described at the beginning of this book and send it our way, that would be wicked, and we would show them on screen in our Questions with the Ghost Next Door video.
And share them on social media too.
Yeah. So like send them to us with Twitter with our hashtag GBC Ghost Next Door, and you can send them to the YouTube email coatsandjackets@gmail.com.
That'll be exciting.
Yeah, that will be exciting. So by all means, like, send that our way. We'd love to see it.
Yes. I'm not as artistic with drawing skills, so I may back down from this challenge.
But you know what? All skill levels welcome.
Absolutely.
Draw something fun, send it our way. It'll be awesome.
I would love to see it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, should we get to the story?
Yes.
Alright, so we have two kids, which seems to be the theme of most Goosebumps stories. They're siblings.
Yes. Brother and sister.
Yes.
And Jackson Stander, who is 12,
yes.
And his sister is Rachel.
I don't have Rachel's age noted, but she's probably 10 if she's younger sister.
11.
11. See, I was close.
You were close.
Jackson is your typical really good child, and Rachel is the polar opposite.
Yeah, they are complete opposites, and it's set up this way on purpose because this is going to be one of two main conflicts in this story.
Right.
So the biggest conflict is going to be Jackson's war inside of himself and his own mind, which we've only really seen a little bit of in other books. There's only been two other times where the characters have really deeply questioned their sanity, but this one goes even further for reasons we'll get into.
But the kids go to Grandpa Whitman's house for spring break, and they see a child sitting on the step, but this wasn't a child. And this is where the introduction comes in to Grandpa's collection of the dummies, how complex they are because this one was remote controlled, and that leads on to how big his collection actually is.
Yes.
So this is very important to the story.
And it's a lot of fun too. And can I just say, like as a plot point here, I really loved the electronics.
Oh, okay.
Because this really made me think about when he got the electronic upgrade from the cousin in book 3. And I remembered in a couple of the other books we've done since, how he was described as being a lot stronger and could stand a lot straighter than he could in previous books.
Right.
And we wondered if it was because of his electronic upgrade.
It probably was.
And it probably was. And this made me think about that, and I was like, oh, it's calling back to the fact that he had added electronics, but I'm going to be disappointed about that pretty soon.
So the dummy on the step is Morty.
And not Slappy.
Not Slappy. And his eyes, mouth move with electronics, and he can talk, which is all remote controlled.
Yes, so Grandpa's doing a voice into a remote.
Yeah, and Grandpa thinks this is amazing. Well, Jackson and Rachel find out that Grandpa's been collecting dummies for quite some time, and he has a big collection in the attic. Isn't it the attic?
It's in a small room.
Yeah.
That I might be in the attic with other things, because his house is divided into a lot of rooms. This is a big house. Let's talk about this house for a second.
Okay, yes.
Because actually the description in this house is pretty cool. It's an older house. It's not really a Gothic style house. It's more of like that older, like Southern traditional style look house, like Southern US style, I mean. It's got old shingling on it. So it's not regular siding. It's that old wooden shingling.
Yeah.
And it says the house is gray. So I'm picturing it's like untreated wood shingling. So it's gone that ashen gray from like being outdoors and weathered. The door is like slightly tilted and like not quite on the hinges right. It's on a big sloping hill. Like it's got, and it says, and this was a really nice description, giant oak trees guarded the front. And like it describes the house being shadowed, so it's like almost in like a bluish light, and it's really good description of this like old place.
Setting the atmosphere for the dummies.
Yeah, and it really sets the atmosphere because like the day is bright and nice. But as Jackson gets closer to the house, there's this little tiny hint of like his apprehension because he starts to notice the weight of his suitcase. Like his suitcase starts to feel kind of heavy to him.
Yeah.
And when they open the door, what was it he said? I wrote it down here about the weather. Page 23. The sunlight faded. A cool breeze shook the trees. Like,
dun dun dun. So, getting back to the story, Jackson, like the other kids in the other Slappy books, was impressed by the dummies and thought that the kids at the YC would be impressed by a show. So, there's something about kids wanting to put on a show for adults. This is a common trend throughout all of these Slappy books.
And I get it. Kids want to put on shows for adults. We all did it. There's no use saying you didn't, because I know you did. We all did it. Kids like to learn new things and show those skills to adults. It's just how it works.
That's it.
But I don't get the idea of putting on shows for and with other kids. Like, a lot of that happens here that seems kind of weird, but in this case he's more so looking for the adult approval.
And like the stage performance, like a lot of these kids in the Slappy books, they put on stage performances.
Yeah, like there's home performances as well, but sometimes it's practice, and usually it's like in a talent show on a stage, or like
And
in this case, a fundraiser.
I'm telling you now, like, those stage performances in grade school, didn't like them. Didn't want to do them.
Me neither. Wanted to have no part of it, really.
No.
I did once. I did once with a friend, and I never did again. And I mostly did it because they were very interested, so I got up the courage and we did it together, but like never again.
I think my best time on stage was when I volunteered to be a curtain puller, and I was in the back. And
that is the way to do it.
To cue.
You had that figured out.
Open the curtain and close the curtain, and job was done.
You really had that figured out. Way to go.
That was probably the best time I had.
But there is a lot of that. And just because we haven't said, Jackson volunteers at the YC because he's one of those really good, upstanding kids. He's got good grades. He volunteers with local kids.
It's part of the persona of the character, showing him and underlining him as being the good in the story.
And in fact, being so good and dependable and responsible, the YC is getting him to put on this whole show for the kids, basically. Like, he's gonna write the story, the kids are gonna perform, and then they want him to do his own act as well.
Yeah. Jackson sees a puppet sitting over in the corner by himself.
And this one looks a lot more like the Slappy we're used to.
Yes. At this point, Edgar, which is I'm not sure if he's like a home tender or a like PC worker for Grandpa, who doesn't speak much. He's rather quiet and inverted. Warns sternly the kids to stay away from that puppet.
Yeah, he tells them they're evil and goes on a bit of a rant, and then eventually says all the dummies are evil. But we think it's mostly because of Slappy.
Yeah, and this is where the Slappy legend comes into the story. And once again, in all of the Slappy books, they tend to do a little bit of background about Slappy, of his legend of how bad he is and how to bring him to consciousness.
Yeah, so we've heard this sort of thing before, but in this case, he says that it was actually carved from the coffin wood, which we've heard, that the coffin wood was cursed.
Yep.
So it was not necessarily the sorcerer's evil spirit, which we did get back lore of in Bride of.
Right.
But it is at least cursed to be evil. And he says the person who says the words to bring him to life are doomed forever to be his slave and spread evil.
But this is where the Slappy legend changes. Edgar adds that Slappy was actually destroyed, and the dummy in the corner is the son of Slappy.
Well, Grandpa says that, but Edgar says, Edgar says, no, he really is evil. This is Slappy.
Okay.
And Grandpa says, no, it's just son of Slappy.
Right, so
he had a replica made.
Yeah. So we don't hear much about the summer antics, but when they go home, Jackson has a little surprise hidden in his suitcase.
Yeah, he says while he's staying with his grandpa how much he would like to be able to have a dummy like that to perform at the YC. And Edgar says to him at the bus station as he's seeing him off, because Edgar's the one that drives them there, because I'm assuming Grandpa doesn't.
Right.
And he says, you asked for it. And then they can't find out where this little surprise comes from. And personally, I think Edgar put it in the suitcase because Edgar didn't like it in the house.
Absolutely.
And the kid kept asking for it, and he was like, well, you asked for it.
One-way ticket of that dummy out of the house.
I think that was a double-edged sentence.
Yeah. Absolutely. But Rachel, being bad, claims that Jackson stole it.
Oh, yeah.
Because she's planting a seed. She's the bad one, and that's where her mind immediately goes. And Rachel finds the paper and reads it.
Yeah, so later on, after Rachel throws a stink about not getting her birthday gift, and Jackson got his early, and their birthdays are close together, which, by the way, I literally wrote in my notes, because she complains about it so often throughout the book, oh my god, this child!
But yes.
But yes. And of course she gets a gift of honey from Grandpa, given to her special. And she's also kind of upset that, like, Jackson has something given from Grandpa. So naturally, he stole it.
Yeah. There's jealousy.
Yeah. And when he has his friends over to his room, she swoops in.
Reads the paper. And Jackson thinks he sees a wink. This is the first movement. Yeah, I like this one. So later on in the story, when Jackson goes to the YC, Miss Pearson talks to Jackson about the financial difficulties that the YC is having. I have a note here saying, why? He's 12 years old. You are the adult here.
A lot of weight on him. Like, he's basically planning this whole talent show for them.
Right, as like a financial way to save him. But like, he's 12.
Benefit concert. They're also having a benefit bake sale.
Yeah.
Which apparently all the schools, all the local schools are helping with. So all the local schools are baking foods, and they're competing to see which school is gonna like take home best baked good. And they're also getting them to paint all the banners and posters and everything.
That's a lot.
Art classes. And like, I mean, it's not him alone, but like they're doing it with all of the local schools. Like, it's kind of and I understand the importance of the youth center, or maybe a community would want to come together and do that, but it's all a bit much, and a lot of it is on Jackson's plate because he's got the extra added pressures on top of the posters and everything. And this goes back to this idea of the responsible kid, that adults give more responsibility to because they seem older than they are, because they're very good at multiple things and they're usually very organized.
I felt this was crossing the line, though.
Definitely. But I could see it as a plausibility, like, for the premise of the story. Not that it would happen in real life, but as a way to really demonstrate how much pressure kids can feel when they are, like, good students to constantly perform and live up to certain standards. They carry this extra weight often with them. And I think that's a really good way to show all this extra pressure and why he might split.
So to say.
So to say.
When Jackson returns from finding out all this and making his commitments, he finds Slappy, or son of Slappy, sitting in his room with his back to the wall, which is not where he left him.
Yeah, the dummy's totally moved.
Absolutely. And this is where Slappy attacks Jackson too.
Oh, is this when he chokes him?
Yes. And that Jackson thinks it's all a dream. It's too much.
Yeah, but it turns out it's genuinely real.
Yes.
And he tells Jackson that he's now going to be his slave, and that he isn't the son of Slappy. He says that he is Slappy.
Right. And there's a chirping now. So like, when...
A weird chirping noise.
Yeah, so he's almost like a hypnotic state.
Yes. Now, we've never seen Slappy hypnotize anyone and take them over before.
We have not. This is elevated.
This is brand new. This is elevated powers. So he's using the power of suggestion to get into Jackson's head. It's very important for like the premise of this story and how it's a bit more of a psychological thriller in that way. And it's sort of bringing it back to the dummy roots of like making someone really question their own mind and what's happening and what isn't.
Yes.
And so it's kind of Twilight Zone-y in that way.
And when Jackson hears the chirping for the first time, he starts laughing like Slappy. This very notable, very distinctive Slappy laugh, which is not Jackson at all.
And Slappy now informs Jackson that he is the son of Slappy. As in, Jackson is son of Slappy now.
Yeah. And that he starts doing terrible things that Slappy does. So we know that Slappy is known for throwing paint and just being this like method of destruction.
Yes. And can I just say, it's totally all the typical stuff. And if we want to like jump ahead in time a little bit and talk about Jackson doing some of the things he does, because we can leave out the family dinner. We do your typical family dinner scene, except it's, instead of destroying the meal, it's his inviting over the neighbors kind of situation, except it's his aunt and uncle and cousin, and they have a big fit at the dinner.
Yes.
I don't feel like that scene was needed.
No, because I've got a note here about like the body shaming. Because that was a trend that we've seen in other novels that we haven't seen in the later ones, and where this one was a later one.
And it's kind of really bad in this scene. And very unnecessary, because like he could have done, they could have left it with the conflict with himself and the conflict with his sister. I feel like they're bringing too much extra into it also with this scene, because he's like talking about how whiny and annoying Noah is and all this stuff, and it's like, you're just making another antagonist out of this cousin when you've already got a perfectly good sister who's its exact opposite.
Yes.
Like, it's sort of, it's unnecessary, it's too much, it is rather mean, and that's the thing I don't like about it, is because usually Goosebumps is not mean, but this one is kind of mean.
It is normal Slappy repertoire though, like he does the verbal attacks that are very pinpointed on insecurities.
Yes, and I think that's one we could have left out. He could have done anything to his sister at supper time instead of it being that particular scene. We also get his usual destroy a meal scene, but this time it's while helping to bake for the bake sale for the YC. Yeah. And he destroys his best friend's kitchen. Like, absolutely. And whatever they had made, and
because they were going to make, was it the biggest cupcake?
They were going to try to make the biggest cupcake, chocolate cupcake ever.
And they didn't have the ingredients, so he was left in charge to watch
Well,
the
they
kitchen.
had to make something different anyway. Because they wanted to bake it in the dog tub, the dog bathtub, which is really funny and a really good kid idea. And the mom was like, well, that's too big and it won't go in an oven. But, you know, I can help you make like a super large cake. Yeah. And so this is what they start doing. Right. The other scene, the paint scene that you were talking about. Yes. Is also so funny because he tells such a child lie. This totally unsee-throughable, completely plausible scenario of 3 wild dogs running in the room and attacking. Although he's not hurt, there was no barking, there's no paw prints anywhere, and the teacher is like seemingly believing him and nodding and agreeing, but the whole while the teacher's pointing out these things and
the entire art room is like
nobody heard anything. I don't see any paw prints. Were you injured? Like, did they attack you? Or, you know, like, the teacher sees through this bull. Oh, yeah. But because he's such a good student and he figures maybe he's having problems, he's sort of like letting it slide a bit, but like also keeping a closer eye on him and like talking to him more. Yeah. But like airtight. These
dogs,
3 wild dogs.
I'm gonna get a phone call about this, I think. Oh man, just wait till the little man gets in school. So, my next note is the ending. Do you have anything else you want to add before the ending?
Do I have anything else I want to... I don't think so, because we did all the major things and the stuff that Slappy normally does. As we get into the ending now, are we going to start with his game player?
Oh, I just have 2 lines.
Oh, okay. Well, let's talk about his game player for a second. Okay. Because it's kind of important. Because he thinks this is how he's being controlled. Because it makes this chirping sound. Yeah. Because he plays this game called Chirping Chickens. Now, for the first time, it is not a brand. He doesn't refer to it as a Game Boy. Because we've seen R.L. Stine name drop Game Boy before. Because it's a part of just the cultural world. Which apparently is not off limits to write about. Like, if it's enough of a touchstone, you can do it. So it's odd to me that he just called it a game player and not a Game Boy. I guess because now that it's 2013, kids are nostalgic about other types of handheld players, like maybe PlayStation, PSP, things like that are different from Nintendo. So I guess he left it generic so that you could kind of imagine whatever your player was. The other interesting thing is the description of Chirping Chickens, because it is 100% Angry Birds.
Oh, absolutely.
And I'm very surprised he didn't just say it was Angry Birds, because that is a huge cultural thing that's happened.
When was Angry Birds released? Was it around then?
I would assume. I don't have my phone because it's recording us. Do you want to Google that real fast and see when Angry Birds came out? Because it is 100% the Angry Birds game.
Nope.
Oh, maybe just silently knowing it every typing error you make.
I'm an art student. 29 or 2009.
2009, yeah.
It definitely is that.
It's 100%, because you can tell from the description, I'm like, this is definitely Angry Birds.
So what R.L. Stine failed to go into is the value of that device that has Angry Birds on it because it was discontinued. No, that was a different one.
That was Flappy Bird.
That's Flappy Bird.
You're thinking about Flappy Bird, which is short-lived.
Yes, Flappy Bird was short-lived. Angry Birds is doing just fine.
Angry Birds has had a couple of movies now. It's definitely doing just fine. And anyway, he theorizes that this chirping sound
Is the game.
that he hears is the game noise. So he thinks, in a perfectly kid-logical way, he's going to hide it in his drawer.
I've been playing this too much. I'm imagining things. The clicky noise
He's
is
like,
in my head.
if I hide the chirping game in the drawer, Slappy can't trigger me, and I can use him to still put on the show. What kind of logic is that? He's
Kid logic.
evil!
He does not care for kid logic. It tires him.
And on that note, there are canaries at the YC.
Mm-hmm.
They're mentioned in an opening scene in which one of them almost dies, and it's fairly traumatizing.
Yeah, it gets out of the cage when they go feed him.
And, yeah, and I don't know how it doesn't die later, but it doesn't, so that's good. But there are these two canaries at the YC, and of course, they make a chirping noise while he's snuck out of being grounded and is on stage. And what happens?
Well, it goes the traditional Slappy way.
It does, and he just gives in.
Yeah.
He was trying to fight it before, but at this point, he's so sick of fighting it. He just gives out and goes, well, I guess I'm his slave now.
That's it.
And he, like, even bites a teacher's hand the way while Slappy bites another kid's hand, and all the extra Slappy things we haven't seen, minus the vomit. They don't do the vomit in this one.
I gotta say I was disappointed in that, because that's in all the books. All of them. Unexpected ending, the R.L. Stine ending.
The big twist.
Is it turns out that Rachel was working the Slappy doll the whole time, and she is daughter of Slappy.
Yeah, apparently she was working with him and wanted to drive Jackson mad. So she was helping Slappy by, like, bringing around the game player, and
making
she also
noise.
took the words away. So when she read those words and, like, ran, she hid them and put a different blank sheet of paper in his pocket instead.
So she was almost like the co-conspirator. Like,
yeah, co-conspirator. She was, like, voluntarily working with Slappy.
Which we didn't see before, I don't think.
Not really.
Not to this extent.
With the very first sister, we saw that she was working with Slappy to a certain extent.
But not to the point where, like...
But you could tell she was remorseful and maybe didn't really want to.
And Rachel wasn't.
Right. Rachel is not remorseful at all.
No.
She just really wanted to make her brother the bad kid.
She was tired of being the bad kid and wanted to have somebody to share the blame with.
And, yeah. I mean, as far as metaphors go for children's states of mind and different things like that, like relationships between siblings, it's done very well in this one.
Yes.
That is one aspect of this story that I really enjoy a lot. Like, that part of it is done super well. Like, there's a really good understanding there of just aging and how kids work and relate to each other and different dynamics, and we haven't really seen this much of a, like, good kid stereotype for a while. Like, we've seen it, but...
Yeah. And, like, a lot of kids want to be good kids. Like, they want to be recognized as being responsible. They want to be,
They want to be taken seriously.
Yeah, and that's Jackson. But Rachel is the second kid coming up, so everybody has probably unfairly compared her to Jackson the whole time. And she is younger, she's learning probably differently, because all kids learn differently.
And she hasn't come out and said it, but she's definitely sick of being in his shadow.
Yes.
And of being called bad by comparison.
Right, and that can be seen because...
She pretends to own the bad kid name, but she doesn't really.
No, like, I think she's just, like you said, she's tired of being in the shadows. And she's tired of being compared to her brother who's older than she is. And instead of being treated like a child like she is, she's probably given more responsibility, saying, oh, well, you know, when Jackson was your age, he was doing this. But, like, that affects the psyche of a child, I would imagine. So,
yeah,
like,
for sure.
This, her saying that she's the daughter of Slappy, her putting her brother through all this turmoil, is her getting the one-up on him.
Yeah, this is like her victory moment.
Yeah.
And it's a very good twist. It's a very believable twist.
Mm-hmm. So how did you feel about the story overall?
Overall, it had its weak points. I don't think I enjoyed it as much as some of the other Slappy books, but I did enjoy how it was different and the ways it, like, explored the relationships of the kids. That part was really great. Some of it felt a little rocky, and, like, there's some things that were, like, maybe outdated, and, like, maybe we didn't need to do or add. And I don't feel like we always need to hit all of the Slappy signature moves every time. Like, I know he does them all in different ways every time, but I feel like sometimes you could mix it up and
bring
do
something
different
new.
things, in that respect. So
I did enjoy the characters, like the siblings and how they played off each other. It's not my favorite story. There's parts of it that I didn't really get into. Like, the Slappy stuff was done, there was nothing new there. I didn't really enjoy Edgar's character as much. I think it could have been developed more to make him more creepy, to put his point across a little bit more. Yeah,
I mean, he seemed weird, but not...
weird enough. Like, he could have been lurking in the shadow in the window as the kids were walking up to the house. He could be, you know, quietly following them around, and they're not quite knowing that he's there, and then all of a sudden, boom,
if there was a
don't take that doll.
If there was a bit more of a presence of him sort of stalking them around the house, then I think it might have driven that point home a little further when he said, you asked for it. Then you would have instantly had the idea, oh, he's been following them, he put that in there.
Yeah.
Like, I think it would have made that a little more obvious that was what had happened.
But I understand why his character wasn't developed, because he wasn't a main character.
No, he's very much a sideline, but still, he could have had a little more of a presence.
They could have built his character and took away the body shaming. Like, I would have swapped that out. So, I'm kind of glad that we're moving on from the Slappy series.
I am too.
He is a top Goosebumps monster.
He is, and he is, as we know, R.L. Stine's favorite to write, so there's a reason he keeps coming back to him, and now he has his own series.
And I do like Slappy more than I liked Monster Blood.
Yes.
100%.
Definitely. Started out loving Monster Blood, and very quickly not loving Monster Blood.
I would read more Slappy books. There's definitely that.
There's definitely that. And on that note, what were some of your highlights from this book? Like, what was a favorite moment?
Good question. I like the chirp aspect, the hypnotizing, because in none of the other Slappy books, hypnotism wasn't a thing. It was, you're my slave, I control you, and you'll do what I want you to do, or I will either hurt you or hurt the people you love. But in this, is hypnotizing. So the chirp changed him, and he was doing it himself.
It's a loss of control.
Yeah. So I liked that aspect of it.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
It's less strong arm and more psychological.
Yeah, me too. That was definitely like a really good point of this for me. I also, just like on a fun note, really liked the mom. and like the different jokes she made all the time. Like she was telling the epitome of those like parent, like really groaner jokes, you know? Like she was the dad joke person.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was wonderful. New technology too, we didn't mention. Like they talk about cell phones and Wi-Fi connection and not having it at their grandpa's house.
Yeah. They're going off grid.
Off grid. And on a side note, a really weird one, and they're talking about Grandpa and all his collections. He has an historical noose collection. Like, there's morbid, and then there's next level creepy. And while I find that super fascinating and could see why somebody would be really fascinated in it, in a kid's book, that's super creepy, right? Like, here's my collection of historical nooses that have hung all these famous people, like famous as in notorious criminals, and it's like, that's cool, Grandpa. But I don't know if I want to look at your nooses.
Did I tell you about the noose we found in the woods one time walking around?
No.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah. It was off a path.
That's
terrifying.
Horrifying. Let's not think too much about that.
And I was probably 11 or 12.
Let's not go there.
No. Happy thoughts.
Jellyfish tanks in the living room of the grandpa's house. Let's change the subject real fast.
No, jellyfish are poisonous, so like that's a really weird collection for him.
Right, they are poisonous.
Yeah.
But he also had carnivorous plants, a whole room of carnivorous plants.
Bet there's not a spider in that whole place.
Or any flies.
No.
And on that note, let us know what you thought of this book and the characters and their relationships. Next time, like I said, we're not doing the regular book.
No, we're doing a bonus video.
We're doing a bonus video. It is right between Christmas and New Year's. It'll be December 31st, 31 days. Is that how that works?
I think it's 31.
Yeah. So, December 31st. Or the 30th, if time has proven me wrong. We are going to do Series 2000, Slappy's Nightmare.
Bum, bum, bum.
Bum, bum, bum. This is going to be fun because it's just going to be a really quick bonus video.
Yes.
There's not going to be a lot to this episode like we usually do, not as much of a discussion. We'll probably do a couple of other fun things, and we hope you tune in for it. After that, we will be coming back January 15th with our next book, and that's going to be, and I'm so excited,
The Girl Who Cried Monster.
Yeah, book 8, The Girl Who Cried Monster. So this is our upcoming schedule. Write it down, get ready.
Start looking for the books if you don't have the books.
Get them from your local library.
Absolutely.
We're all about that, going to local libraries. So do it up, get your information, and again, local libraries also provide ebooks if you didn't know that and you would rather have an ebook. They do have ebook copies for you to rent out.
And you can even bookmark them. The app that we have here in Canada, you can actually like put it on your list and they'll notify you when it's available.
So that's exciting.
It is.
And we can find you on Twitter as
coffee_with_Jen with one N, and you?
A glitter macaroon with 1 T and 2 O's.
And our hashtag is GBC Ghost Next Door if you want to hit us up and send us your comments.
And like we said at the beginning of the video, tweet us any pictures you want to draw for Goosebumps, especially if they're of that office.
Yeah.
And also use our email for coatsandjackets@gmail.com. So get ready for The Girl Who Cried Monster and Slappy's Nightmare, and until next time, reader beware.
You're in for a scare. Oh, Mandy, this didn't record.
Did it not record?